Alright, so this video we have a nice miniature game. There's only a few moves, so we're going to take a look at that. And so this one was sent in by Adorn Alignment. He's rated about 1,000. And let's go ahead and let's take a look. This one's a short game, only about 11 moves, so this is going to be a pretty quick one. Alright, so in the game, e4 is played. Oh, and by the way, one thing I shouldn't leave out, our player is the black pieces in this game. So that's one thing to remember. That's always important. Okay, so e5, knight f3, knight c6. So we have a bishop c4, just normal Italian opening, bishop c5. And here we see b4, the Evans Gambit. So Evans Gambit, it's a risky gambit. I say usually it's best if your opponent is offering a gambit. It's best to take. So he plays bishop to b6, but one quick thing I just want to show kind of the idea behind accepting the gambit. So the b pawn is offered, so that way that white can build a big center quickly. And say if bishop c5, then d4 would be played, and that comes with the tempo. And more common is bishop to a5. That way, after d4, there's the pin. And so with takes, the pawn can't recapture. And so usually, white would just castle. And then, we get a very aggressive position from white where it's not always good to keep grabbing pawns because white's getting ahead in development. And, if black's not careful, white can get a pretty dynamic position because he is, already castled and he's developing, gets a pawn center, so black has to be careful, but he does get a pawn. But declining a gambit is sometimes a good option as well. Sometimes your opponent might not know the unaccepted lines, or declined. So let's see here, bishop to b6. b5, okay. Another idea is, pushing a4 and trying to get at this bishop. Okay, b5, though, chases the knight. So best, I think, would be knight to a5. Hitting the bishop. And here's some reason why. I'll show you in a minute. So if knight to d4, so in the game, the knight takes on e5, which is bad. But let's say the knight takes on d4. This is why it's slightly better for white. So say bishop takes. We'll go for bishop takes first. We'll look at the pawn in a moment. But if bishop takes, then you can play c3. And if bishop to b6, then d4 can be played. And white still has got this nice center, but he hasn't even needed to sacrifice. So that's good for white. Got the center one without sacrificing. Now let's take a look if black recaptured the other way. So knight d4, knight takes, and now if e takes. So now this bishop isn't looking as good on b6 because it is kind of blocked by its own pawn. And yeah, I'm not sure that this is as good for black. I mean, at the moment, this pawn is preventing the knight from coming to c3, but I think this is a little bit better for white. Okay, so now let's go back to the actual game. After knight to d4, white plays a mistake. He takes on e5. This is not very good already. So queen g5. We got this nice fork here for black. He's forking the knight in the g-pawn. And yeah, so you can't really hold on to this position very well as white. It's already going downhill pretty quickly. So in the game, knight takes on f7. So he's attacking the rook and the queen. Black just doesn't need to care. He can just take on g2. And so knight takes h8 and queen takes on h1 check. So if we look at the material, I'm just looking at this position, so it's pretty much equal. Each side has captured the rook in the corner. But it's definitely not an equal position. It's very much losing for white. Because if you look at the pieces, look, the piece that white had used to capture is in this corner doing nothing. This knight is useless. And this queen is much more active than because we got this bishop, knight, and queen, and queen and knight together against a king can create a lot of threats and are a very powerful combination. Okay, so only legal move is to undevelop this bishop. And then after undeveloping this bishop, white is even less developed. None of these pieces are useful. Queen takes e4, and yeah, so right here it's not very good for white. So only move to prevent a mate would be if queen e2 is played, but then you're giving up the queen because knight can just take. But in the game, bishop to e2 is played, and so right here, and the game goes like this: knight takes on c2. Only move to avoid mate is queen taking on c2, but in the game, king to f1 is played, and then queen to h1 would be mate. One quick variation I just want to show though. So after bishop to e2, you actually don't have to take with the knight on c2. You don't even have to allow the queen to take. You don't have to give him even that option to prevent a mate, because black could play something like d6 or d5, just letting out this bishop, and then we'll just make a move for white. There's really no way he can stop a mate. So c3, just to show what could happen, and there's no real way to prevent a mate. Pretty much everything's going to lead to mate. And so this is just another possibility that you wouldn't even allow a sacrifice to keep the game alive. Either way, of course, though, if your opponent's giving up queen for a knight, you're pretty much losing. All right. So this was a very interesting game. All right. Yeah. So just remember not to let your pieces get too deactivated if you're playing as white. He let black's pieces kind of just overwhelm him. And let's just end this game. We'll leave with the final position, because look at how unactive the pieces were, and he even had to undevelop to prevent checks, and so that just leads downhill. You don't want to be undeveloping. All right. So development really was the downfall of white, going just and moving the same pieces more than once. All right, so that's going to be it for this video with a door and alignments game.